Well, welcome back to another edition of Commodity Chat from Trader PhD. I'm head of market content Dawson Schmidt. Joining me again, as always, for this discussion is Ag Market Advisor Nick Lawrence.
Hello.
Well, Nick, this week, I guess, in the overnight news, we're currently recording Wednesday morning again, and overnight we got news that there could be a potential peace deal between the U.S. and Iran coming up in the pipeline. Kind of what's your thoughts about it? Because we had some big sharp moves in the overnight, as the potential of peace in the Middle East, at least for now. What does that mean? Is the market going to be convinced, or are we going to kind of be trading risk on for a while in some of these key markets?
Yeah, so it wasn't even really overnight. I mean, it was kind of just evening time. I think it's between 6 and 7. I remember seeing the markets kind of go haywire and knew something was up. And yeah, sure enough, it says they're reviewing it, and then there were some positive comments I think that got circulated. Um, but then it really ever since then it's been a little bit of back and forth reporting on kind of what each side's saying. Obviously, Trump's had his rhetoric of they don't agree to it, or just going back at it, all these things. But anyway, right now, by and large, the market sees it as a positive development for ending things, and like a vacuum, taking all the risk premium out of it.
Well, then, I mean, with this move, looking at a crude chart here, I mean, is that just what a lot of what we're seeing is profit taking here? Crude down just $7 overnight. Um, corn by the morning, corn by the morning was down a dime. Wheat heading lower about 20 cents. I mean, looking at a perspective basis, kind of seems to be a lot of premium still in this market compared to where we were, just a few months ago.
Yeah, I feel like we do need to make sure, especially with sensitive markets like crude, and then things that kind of key off what what's happening there. We do need to be careful and realize that combination of profit taking and just algorithmic, see and spray type trading action, and that the dust could settle on this and be complete opposite way. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet necessarily on the whole situation. And again, I think that the past couple weeks of trade has been more than just these immediate micro effects of the strait and the war. I think the market is starting to price in some more systemic issues, whether that's inflation or just input flows, especially to the southern hemisphere. And so I do think there's has been a little bit more to it. Um, that the market's seen a little bit of a bigger picture issue, more than just kind of like when we started, just the knee jerk reaction. So we'll see. We'll see if the market can recover and kind of start pricing in some of those other issues. And we're just going to have to see subsequent price action from here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the bottleneck issues are not going to be solved overnight. Even if a peace deal is signed, there's still a lot of fertilizer stuck in the strait. There's still a decent amount of energy stuck in the strait, and then just operations in general in the Persian Gulf have been impacted. So I mean, not only do we have to see those flows pick up, we have to see production pick up, so more flows can kind of exit the Gulf and get to where they were initially going to be headed, or to places that are still in need of that moving forward. And you're talking about issues that could still be priced in even with this pullback that we've seen, and again that we've talked about this week after week, is just the ongoing drought issues with the winter wheat crop here in the U.S. I mean, this last week, winter wheat conditions, they did improve by a percentage point according to USDA. I think listening to you talk to some producers just this last week, it was thinking about we saw a little bit of an improvement in some areas, but is that just indicative of maybe seeing conditions done going down, rather than seeing improvements as we near harvest?
That was my opinion. 2 weeks ago saw stabilization. This Monday you saw a stabilization. I think it's probably more about, when it comes to the beauty contest, how much worse can it kind of get in a sense, more than anything's getting dramatically better. So, the low side of that could be put in, I guess you could say, but that's not saying things are improving and gonna increase yield necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, still on a historical perspective, we're some of the lowest excellent conditions for this winter wheat crop that we've seen in decades at this point. And then mixed on top of that, I mean, this I'm looking at a map that Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient created, and showing that this is tomorrow night. I believe that yeah, they're supposed to get some pretty freezing temperatures in the heart of HRW wheat country. So, I mean, not only are we looking at dry conditions, we're still kind of concerned about freeze for a lot of these areas.
Yeah, I'm not really sure freeze act personally. I
Mhm.
think freezing matters more for like Western Nebraska, the upper Midwest, the upper
Mhm.
plains, that type of thing where you've got your summer crops emerging more than right there in the heart of HRW country where things are drying down and getting dead anyway. I'm
Yeah.
not really 100% sure frost is going to matter much at this point. I mean, obviously there could be something that's still green that's got um or you grain fill, I guess, but to me, uh, it's already in dire straits. Things are already dried down, and I'm not 100% sure it matters.
Yeah, I mean the other news that we got, just this morning or yesterday or whenever that came out was, Oklahoma. We've been waiting for Kansas to do their winter wheat crop tour this year, and I don't know if this one got passed by me, from previous years, but Oklahoma State University does its own little crop tour for just the state, and they came in with the conditions that were, I mean, not necessarily conditions, but I think their wheat yields or projected wheat yields are supposed to be sharply lower than the 10-year average. And then production as a whole, I think it's supposed to be like 54% less than just last year. And so, I mean, they're seeing, you know, the Oklahoma crop is not the biggest crop by state, but I mean, it's just showing a lot of these issues that they've been experiencing for a lot of those areas that it's just not looking good in general down there.
Yeah, I mean that crop tour doesn't usually make headlines, but obviously you're like this year it's gonna,
Hmm.
for
Yep.
confirmation bias and the market's looking for answers. So
Yeah. And speaking of looking for answers, just kind of shifting gears quick, USD is going to release their new crop projections next week for the 2026-27. And, I think the market is still trying to figure out what a lot of these production issues mean for the US. Um, I just kind of slapped together a little bit of a supply and demand outlook that of like, kind of putting in with a lot of the lower yields or potentially higher abandonment that we could see this year. That it's like we've seen rising stocks to use for wheat country for the past 3-4 years, and so it's like, is this going to be the year where we start to take a step back from that?
um yeah, it is going to be interesting globally, domestically. Uh will these production and supply related issues, will it really kind of trim that down and turn us into more of a price rationing type scenario, not just in the US, but globally? We're going to continue to kind of do the math on that and watch that moving forward. That would obviously be relatively rare territory for this market, given just the global production. But
Hmm.
there are issues around the world, whether it's input related or um, weather related, whatever the case may be, that could be dragging down this production.
Yeah. With this volatility though, volatility can bring opportunity, and something that we've been able to do here for clients is, of course, we've had our price our price targets out there for a few crops. And we were getting some that were hitting, just this last week. We've been getting some that's been hitting throughout this rally. But this was last week's alone, and we saw some nice targets get hit for wheat, corn, soybeans, cotton, all across the board. I mean, it's just showing especially with today's step back in prices, or these last couple days step back in prices, that having these targets in place is kind of important.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to bring this up on a day like today, because over the past couple days, before today's sell off, you know, I was feeling a good handful of conversations of, hey, should I be selling? And it's like, we had our, a large amount, as you can see, over the past week, and basically every commodity we cover, um, or at least that we have price targets for, you know, everybody got a chance to sell essentially last week or up to Monday, right? And that's been the conversation that these targets are what they are for a reason, and the market does generally step back from it. Market didn't know that there's going to be a peace deal happen today, but sure enough, we're selling off anyway, right? And so as a producer, I guess, again, just wanted to highlight things we can do around those targets, right? Whether you're making cash sales, and in my notes yesterday to our brokerage clients, you don't have to necessarily make the cash sale. We can always use options around those levels. And so when those hit and there's questions in your mind, um, we need to pick up, that's what you pay me for, pick up the phone, call, we'll talk about it. Um, because if you find yourself saying, well, you know, like getting overly bullish, or I'm just going to ignore it because things have been going higher and higher and higher. When you find yourself burying your head in the sand, it's probably should be an indicator that you need to pick up the phone, maybe.
Yeah, definitely some things to keep in mind. I think closing out the discussion, though, just wanting to kind of quickly highlight, what's been going on with planting in general. I know things get very variable across across the U.S. Just here in Iowa, I just heard yesterday that there's some guys that were planting and they did 500 acres in a day. That was the fastest that they've ever done in a day. And so just for perspective on that. And so there's the guys that's, booking right along, and there's other guys that are probably at 0% planted for some areas, just based on, is their soil a little bit more saturated than they'd like, just making sure that they're planting in optimal conditions. But, as a whole, 38% of the U.S. corn crop was planted as of last week. And, we seem to kind of be pushing things along at a pretty good speed for both corn and soybeans here.
Yeah, catching up quickly. That it was like a week or so ago. Sawgrass was saying we could have a window open up for some of these wetter, colder areas that were behind, and sure enough, that window for the most part has opened up for most of us. And so, just by and large, the crop's getting in finally. Still, obviously, battling a little bit colder temperatures than we might like, or colder soil than we might like, but being tail into the first week of May, it's time to get it in, and soil and air temperature should rapidly improve after basically today, tomorrow, or what? Yeah, so things are moving right along, and I think this part is gonna, as far as planting pace is concerned, it's gonna start being a non-issue, and the market's going to start looking at just that development, right? Um, good to excellent scores, that type of thing, and just how it evolves from there. And then obviously, the safrinha crop, anything in South America, and then obviously Australia. So I think the market is going to start shifting its focus from just the planting delay, if it was focused too much on it anyway. I think there's an argument to be made there that wasn't really a huge factor in the run to begin with.
Hmm.
It's kind of more like we were just kind of keeping one eye on it type of a thing. But that fire seems to be getting put out for the most part at this point.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the 7 day precip anomaly, I mean, there's a lot of variability across the corn belt and egg belt in general. That it's like, yeah, where there's windows, I'm sure if we can get temperatures up, people are going to plant, they're going to get that crop in the ground. And then, even looking at long range stuff, I know long range stuff is never set in stone, especially when you're looking a month in advance, even, 3, 2 or 3 weeks in advance of what actually materializes. But again, with these conversations with Eric Snodgrass, it's not really showing that there's a lot of issues that are expected to appear for the U.S. from what we're seeing so far, based on historical standards, based on what we've been getting. We've seen, some alleviation in some key areas. And then going back to our discussion about El Nino years in general, I mean, typically when you have an El Nino, barring other influences on the weather, we don't necessarily have a large step back in yields for corn and soybeans.
Yeah, that's right. And so yeah, really the way the summer weather is trending, it seems like we're set up getting set up pretty good.
Going to continue monitoring that for this for our discussions moving forward. But yeah, I mean, the developments with the U.S. and Iran going to be a key issue to continue watching here on, if we get a peace deal, what does that mean? Again, things aren't going to necessarily change overnight, whether we get a peace deal or not. I think I think escalations are the more likely factor of what's going to change quickly versus an alleviation to, supply chains in general for the U.S. and for the world.
Yeah, obviously that's the big news. It's what we're going to be actively watching all day today, and maybe over the next couple of days. But that, and then once kind of the knee jerk reaction, the dust settle here, it's kind of the knee jerk reaction to it. What kind of happens from here. So again, very very dynamic times we're in, and stay tuned, stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure. We'll wrap up the discussion right now. Thanks for listening. I'm Dawson Schmidt.
I'm Nick Lawrence.
This has been Commodity Chat from Trader PhD.